It was removed for aesthetic reasons. The words just hung there in the thick, soupy air of a blistering July afternoon. They floated over the scent of chlorine and SPF 50, buzz-killing the perfect suburban symphony of splashing kids and the gentle hum of the pool filter. For a second, I was sure I had misheard. Maybe the heat was getting to me. Maybe the 2 light beers I'd had were staging a coup in my auditory cortex. "I'm sorry," I said, pulling off my sunglasses to make sure she could see the full, unadulterated disbelief on my face. "I think my ears are full of water. Could you repeat that?" The woman before me didn't even flinch. She was a specimen of pure, distilled authority, probably in her mid-50s, with hair sculpted into a blonde helmet that could likely deflect small arms fire. She wore a visor pulled down so low it was a miracle she could see, and her lips were pursed into a permanent, bloodless line. She was meticulously adjusting a chaise lounge to be perfectly, mathematically, parallel with the grout line in the concrete. This, I would later learn, was Carol, the self-appointed queen and iron-fisted president of the Maple Creek Estates Homeowners Association. But right then, she was just the obstacle between me and sanity. Let's rewind about 10 minutes. There I was, Jack, a 32-year-old project manager and, as of 6 weeks ago, the proud/terrified owner of my first-ever single-family home. I was lounging by the pool, congratulating myself on achieving a key part of the American dream: a mortgage the size of a small country's GDP and the right to complain about lawn maintenance. Life was good. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The water was cool. I had officially escaped the cramped, noisy world of apartment living for this manicured paradise. I'd even read the HOA rulebook, all 247 pages of it. I knew by heart the 3 approved shades of beige for mailbox posts, the official decibel level for joyful outdoor recreation, and the fact that holiday decorations could not be erected more than 14 days prior to the holiday itself, and must be dismantled within 7. It was the gospel of suburban mediocrity, and while I found it profoundly absurd, it seemed like a small price to pay for peace and quiet. Then it happened. A little kid, no older than 6, was doing that thing kids do where they try to see how fast they can run on a wet, slippery surface without technically running. He hit a puddle, his feet went out from under him, and he windmilled his arms like a cartoon character. For one heart-stopping, gut-wrenching second, I was sure he was going to crack his head open on the concrete or go careening into the deep end. His dad, a guy with lightning-fast reflexes, snagged him by the shirt collar at the last possible moment. Crisis averted. But my project manager brain, the one that makes me triple-check Gantt charts and obsess over risk mitigation, had been activated. My eyes did a quick safety scan of the pool area. Fencing secure. No diving signs visible. Deck clear of major obstructions. And then I saw it. Or rather, I saw where it wasn't. On the wall, next to the deep end, was a big, empty metal hook. There was a faint, cleaner rectangle on the faded beige paint. A ghost of safety past. The life preserver ring, the big round orange thing you throw to people who are actively in the process of not breathing anymore, was gone. That's when I approached the woman with the visor. And that's when she hit me with it. That garish orange clashed with the community's approved poolside color palette, she elaborated, giving the chaise lounge one final, microscopic nudge into perfect alignment. It's an eyesore, a jarring visual element. I stared at her. My brain was furiously trying to process the logic. It was like trying to solve an advanced calculus problem using only a half-eaten sandwich. An eyesore, I repeated slowly, letting the word roll around in my mouth. It tasted like idiocy. The life preserver. The thing designed to be a jarring visual element so you can, find it when someone's drowning. That thing. She finally deigned to look at me, her eyes squinting as if my very existence was offensive. The HOA board approved its temporary removal pending a review for a more suitable, designer-approved replacement. It's in secure storage. Secure storage, I parroted. My internal monologue was screaming. Secure storage? Where? In a bunker 2 states away? Does the drowning person fill out a form in triplicate to request its retrieval? And while I have you, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial, accusatory whisper, your towel. She gestured with her chin toward my lounge chair, where my perfectly good, absorbent, and very colorful beach towel lay. It had a parrot on it. It is not one of the 3 approved solid colors for poolside linens. Please see Section 14, Paragraph C of the pool regulations. We're trying to maintain a certain level of decorum here. That was it. That was the snap. The towel. It was one thing to endanger the lives of children for the sake of a beige color scheme, but to bring my parrot towel into it? That was a declaration of war. She turned her back on me then, a clear dismissal. The conversation was over. She had spoken from on high. I stood there for a moment, the sun beating down on my head, a toxic cocktail of disbelief and pure, unadulterated rage brewing in my gut. I looked at the empty hook on the wall. I looked at the smug, rigid set of her shoulders. Okay, I thought, a slow, dangerous smile beginning to form on my face. Fine. You want to handle safety, Carol? Let's handle safety. I turned and walked away from the pool, my flip-flops making angry slapping sounds on the hot concrete. I didn't head for my lounge chair. I didn't head for the gate. I walked with the determined stride of a man on a mission, a stupid, petty, and soon-to-be glorious mission. I pulled out my phone, my thumb flying across the screen, my blood pressure thrumming a frantic rhythm against my eardrums. I wasn't calling the city. I wasn't looking up OSHA regulations, though I was tempted. I was calling in a favor. I was calling my brother-in-law. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Dave, I said, my voice tight. I have a situation and a business opportunity for you. Dave's voice came through the speaker, lazy and amused. Let me guess. Your HOA sent you a passive-aggressive newsletter about the emotional trauma your garden gnome is inflicting on the neighborhood squirrels. Worse, I said, pacing near the community center's sad-looking flower beds. They've privatized oxygen and are charging per breath. No, the pool. The HOA president, I think her name is Carol, she looks like she irons her socks, hid the life preserver ring. She hid it because it's, and I quote, an eyesore. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, followed by a sound that started as a cough and quickly escalated into a full-blown wheezing laugh. You're kidding me. Oh my God, you're not kidding. That's the most HOA thing I've ever heard. That's a Hall of Famer. It gets better, Dave. She informed me that my towel, which has a parrot on it, is non-compliant. So here's the business opportunity. I need the executive pool party package. The one with the inflatable slide and the giant flamingo floaty? It's a Saturday, Jack. I'm booked solid until September. You should have called me weeks ago. No, forget the slide. I just need the staff. The talent. How many lifeguards can you get to the Maple Creek Estates community pool in the next 15 minutes? I'll pay double your weekend rate. Cash. Plus, I'll buy you that ridiculously expensive smoke-infused brisket from Franklin's you won't shut up about. Another pause. This one more thoughtful. Dave ran a small but successful business called Pool Party Pros. He provided lifeguards, games, and inflatable fun for kids' parties all over the county. He was my wife's brother, and he understood my particular brand of calculated insanity better than anyone. You want me to deploy a tactical team of lifeguards to your sleepy suburban pool on a Saturday afternoon because a crazy lady doesn't like the color orange? He asked, the grin audible in his voice. I'm framing it as a proactive safety initiative in response to a clear and present danger to public health, I said, a wave of righteous indignation fueling my words. She created a safety vacuum, Dave. I am simply filling that vacuum with trained, certified professionals in bright, non-compliant, gloriously red shorts. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. The sheer, unadulterated chaos of it was too good for him to pass up. I have 3 kids just wrapping up a 6-year-old's birthday party over in Sunridge Canyon. The party ended 10 minutes ago. They were about to head back to the shop. Perfect, I breathed. They can be there in 20 minutes, Dave said, the excitement mounting. Their names are Kevin, Liam, and Chloe. Kevin's the lead. He's 17 but has the soul of a 50-year-old bureaucrat. He's a stickler for the rules. He'll love this. Send me the address. Oh, this is going to be epic. I want pictures, high-resolution pictures. You'll get a full after-action report, I promised, and hung up. I walked back toward the pool area, a triumphant smirk plastered across my face. I took a seat in a lounge chair that gave me a perfect, panoramic view of both the entrance and of Carol, who was now pretending to read a magazine, though I knew she was watching me. The clock was ticking. The stage was set. And I, the humble owner of a parrot-themed towel, was about to become a producer. The next 15 minutes were some of the most satisfying of my adult life. I sat there, pointedly using my vibrant, non-compliant towel, and engaged in a silent war of wills with Carol. She would flick a page of her magazine with unnecessary force. I would take a long, slow sip of my water. She would adjust her visor. I would reapply sunscreen. It was the suburban equivalent of a Wild West showdown, only with more pastels and a higher risk of sun damage. The other residents were mostly oblivious, lost in their own worlds of splashy fun and lukewarm light beer. They had no idea they were about to become audience members to a matinee performance of Pettiness, the musical. Then, I saw it. A slightly beat-up white van, the kind you see in movies right before someone gets kidnapped, rumbled into the community center parking lot. Emblazoned on the side, in cheerful, peeling letters, was the logo for Pool Party Pros, We Bring the Fun. The side door slid open, and 3 figures emerged. They moved with the crisp, efficient energy of a well-drilled team. They were teenagers, probably none older than 18, but they were decked out in full professional regalia. Bright red shorts, stark white polo shirts with Lifeguard printed in bold red letters across the back. Whistles dangled from lanyards around their necks. Each one carried a red rescue tube, the long foam flotation devices, like a soldier carrying a rifle. They marched in a single file line through the gate and into the pool area. The effect was immediate. The lazy weekend vibe evaporated, replaced by a sudden, palpable sense of confusion. People sat up. Conversations faltered. A dad who had been lazily tossing a ball with his son just stopped, mid-throw. The leader of the trio, a tall, lanky kid with a shockingly serious expression and a dusting of freckles across his nose, strode directly toward me. He moved with a purpose that suggested he was about to defuse a bomb, not supervise a pool full of accountants and their offspring. "Mr. Morrison?" he asked, his voice clear and devoid of any teenage slouch. "I'm Kevin. Dave sent us. Liam and Chloe." He gestured to the other 2, who stood at attention behind him. "We were told this is a Code 3, proactive safety mandate." I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. "Dave, you magnificent bastard." "That's right, Kevin," I said, rising from my chair to meet him. I adopted a similarly serious tone. "The situation is critical. As you can see," I gestured dramatically to the empty hook on the wall. "This is a high-risk environment. The primary flotation device has been decommissioned due to aesthetic conflicts." Kevin's eyes followed my gesture. He stared at the empty hook, and his brow furrowed with genuine professional concern. "Unacceptable," he muttered, shaking his head. "A clear violation of standard aquatic safety protocols." It was at this moment that Carol, who had been watching this entire exchange with the slack-jawed horror of someone witnessing a unicorn crash a tea party, finally found her voice. She sprang up from her chair, her magazine fluttering to the ground. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice a shrill shriek that made a nearby toddler start to cry. "Who are you people? This is a private community pool. You can't just be here." I stepped smoothly between Carol and my newly hired safety detail. "Carol," I said, my voice calm and reasonable. "Allow me to introduce Kevin, Liam, and Chloe. They are certified professional lifeguards. Since the board, under your leadership, has deemed our pool unsafe by removing the emergency equipment, I took the liberty of hiring a private safety detail to ensure the well-being of our friends and neighbors. You're welcome." The words hung in the air, a perfect checkmate. I had used her own logic, or lack thereof, to corner her. Kevin, bless his rule-following heart, completely ignored Carol's sputtering. He was already in operational mode. "Ma'am, please step back. We need to secure the area," he said before turning to his team. "Deployment pattern Delta. Liam, take position Alpha, elevated observation post." He pointed to an empty lounge chair on a slightly raised section of the deck. "Chloe, position Bravo. Patrol the west perimeter. I'll take the high traffic zone near the steps. Synchronize watches." He looked down at his digital watch. "The time is 14:32. Let's have a safe afternoon, people. Eyes up, stay hydrated." Liam and Chloe nodded curtly and moved to their positions. Liam perched on his designated, elevated post, his posture ramrod straight. Chloe began a slow, methodical patrol along the edge of the pool, her rescue tube held at the ready. The whole scene was so absurdly, beautifully professional that I felt a tear of pride well up in my eye. The community reaction was pure gold. The dad who had dropped the ball was now trying and failing to hide his laughter behind his hand. His wife was filming the whole thing on her phone. A group of teenagers who had been sulking in the corner were now sitting up, watching with wide-eyed glee. I got a slow, deliberate thumbs up from a guy I recognized from the finance committee. Carol stood there, rendered momentarily speechless. Her face cycled through a series of colors I hadn't known human skin was capable of achieving, settling on a shade of puce that clashed horribly with her visor. My lifeguards were magnificent. Kevin blew his whistle, a sharp, piercing trill, at a man who was walking a little too briskly on his way to the restroom. "Sir, please maintain a safe walking pace on the deck." Chloe gently admonished a woman for trying to eat a sandwich less than the regulation 5 feet from the water's edge. "Ma'am, for sanitation reasons, we need to keep all food items outside the splash zone." It was beautiful. It was a perfectly executed symphony of malicious compliance. Carol finally rebooted. "This is a violation," she seethed, taking a step toward me. "An unauthorized commercial activity on common grounds. I am calling the police." "Is it a commercial activity?" I countered, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not conducting a business. I'm a resident who has invited some guests over for the afternoon. My guests just happen to be highly trained in CPR and aquatic rescue techniques." "Are you suggesting you're anti-safety, Carol? Because it really sounds like you're arguing against having lifeguards at the pool. I'd hate for there to be an incident on your watch, especially since you're the one who removed the only life ring. Think of the liability." I'd weaponized her favorite word against her. Liability. I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes, momentarily overpowering the rage. She knew I was right. In any potential lawsuit, the story, "The HOA president removed the safety ring, so a concerned resident hired his own lifeguards," played a hell of a lot better for me than it did for her. Defeated for the moment, and acutely aware that she was now the star of at least a dozen smartphone videos. She let out a strangled, furious noise. She whipped out her phone, her thumb mashing the screen with violent intent. "You haven't heard the last of this, Mr. Morrison," she snarled, her voice low and venomous. "I certainly hope not," I said cheerfully. "The kids are only booked until 5. She shot me a look that could curdle milk, then turned on her heel and stomped out of the pool area, presumably to find a quiet place to call in the cavalry. I gave Kevin a subtle nod of approval. He responded with a crisp, "All clear, sir. Perimeter is secure." I leaned back in my lounge chair, popped my sunglasses back on, and took a long, satisfying sip of my now lukewarm water. Round 1 was decisively mine. But I knew this was just the opening act. The flashing lights, I suspected, were not far behind. And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, a police cruiser rolled slowly into the parking lot. It didn't come screaming in with sirens blaring. It arrived with a kind of weary inevitability, like it was sighing. 2 officers got out. The one driving was older, with a salt and pepper mustache and the profoundly tired eyes of a man who has seen every stupid thing humanity has to offer. Twice. This, I would learn, was Officer Miller. His partner was young, bright-eyed, and looked like he was genuinely excited to be upholding the law. Officer Davis. The arrival of the police elevated the afternoon's entertainment from a quirky local drama to a full-blown spectator sport. People were now openly standing on their backyard patios to get a better view. The whispers rippled through the pool area. Carol, who had apparently been lying in wait, pounced the moment the officers cleared the gate. She marched over to them, pointing a trembling, accusatory finger at me. "Officers! Thank goodness you're here!" she exclaimed, her voice laden with manufactured victimhood. "This man is running an illegal business on HOA property. He's brought these hooligans to harass the residents." I let out a gentle sigh, swung my legs off my lounge chair, and walked over calmly, my hands raised in a universal gesture of, "I'm not the lunatic here." "Officers, my name is Jack Morrison. Happy to clear up whatever's going on." Officer Miller's gaze flicked from Carol's furious face to me, then to the 3 red-clad teenagers diligently scanning the water. A flicker of something, not quite a smile, but the ghost of one, passed across his face before he suppressed it. "Hello again, Carol," he said, his voice flat and devoid of any surprise. "What seems to be the problem this time?" The emphasis he put on this was a work of art. "He's trespassing. He's created a public nuisance. He's thumbing his nose at our community rules." Carol was practically vibrating with indignation. Officer Miller turned his tired eyes to me. "Son, what's your side of the story?" "Well, officer," I began, keeping my tone respectful and calm. "This morning, I happened to notice that the community's only life preserver was missing from its post." I pointed to the empty hook. "When I inquired with our HOA president here, she informed me she had it removed because the orange color clashed with the pool's aesthetic palette. As a concerned resident, and frankly, as a concerned human being with a basic survival instinct, I hired private, certified lifeguards for the afternoon to ensure everyone's safety until the board could rectify their design choice. These are my guests." The rookie, Officer Davis, looked at Carol, his brow furrowed in confusion. "So, ma'am, you're saying you removed the emergency safety equipment? On purpose?" "It was an eyesore," Carol insisted, her voice rising. "It's in storage. It's perfectly safe." Officer Miller pinched the bridge of his nose, closing his eyes for a long moment as if praying for strength. "Carol," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "We've been over this. Calling 911 because Mrs. Henderson's poodle relieved itself on the common area fescue is not an emergency. Calling because someone's trash cans are out an hour past the deadline is not an emergency. And this," he gestured around the pool, "is not a police matter. This is an HOA squabble of epic proportions, but it's still just a squabble." He turned back to me. "Are these kids bothering anyone?" "Only in the sense that they are diligently preventing drownings and enforcing a strict no-running policy," I said. "Kevin, here, runs a tight ship." From his perch, Kevin gave the officer a sharp, affirmative nod. Miller sighed, a sound that contained years of frustration. "Carol, there's no crime being committed here. He's a resident. They are his guests on the common property. There is nothing we can do. Please, for the love of all that is holy, try to solve these things without involving my department. My paperwork is already a nightmare." He gave Carol a final, warning look before turning to leave. As he passed me, he lowered his voice slightly. "You've got guts, kid, but you've kicked a hornet's nest the size of a Buick. Watch your back." He gave me a look that was 1 part warning and 2 parts amused respect. Then he, and the still confused rookie, headed back to their cruiser. The police left. Carol was left standing there, her mouth opening and closing silently like a fish. She had been publicly, authoritatively, and completely shut down. The entire neighborhood had witnessed her lose control. It was a massive, humiliating defeat. The silent laughter from the surrounding patios was almost deafening. She didn't say another word. She just gave me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, gathered her things, and stormed away. The battle was won, but as Officer Miller had warned, I had a feeling the war was just beginning. The next morning, I was enjoying a cup of coffee on my new front porch, feeling like the conquering hero of a very small, very petty kingdom. The air was fresh, the birds were chirping, and for a brief, beautiful moment, all was right with the world. That peace was shattered by the sight of a teenager in a slightly too large polo shirt with the Maple Creek HOA logo embroidered on it. He was speed-walking up my driveway with the furtive energy of a spy on a dangerous mission. He didn't ring the doorbell. He didn't knock. He just taped an envelope to my front door with a piece of Scotch tape, took a picture of it with his phone as proof of delivery, and then practically sprinted back to the golf cart he'd left running at the curb. I sighed. My brief moment of zen utterly destroyed. I knew exactly what this was. I walked to the door and peeled the envelope off. Inside, on thick, creamy letterhead that probably cost more than my coffee maker, was an official HOA violation notice. I scanned it, a grim smile spreading across my face. It wasn't for the lifeguards. It wasn't for creating a public nuisance or harassing the president. Carol was too smart for that. She knew she couldn't win on that front. No, this was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive warfare. The violation was for improper display of refuse receptacles. According to the notice, my garbage and recycling bins had been visible from the street at 11:47 a.m. on Saturday. This was, as the letter helpfully pointed out, a full 1 hour and 47 minutes past the 10 a.m. deadline for their removal, as stipulated in Bylaw 27, Section F, Paragraph 3. The fine was $25. I wasn't even angry. I was in a strange way impressed. This was the move of a true artist of animosity. She couldn't get me on the big dramatic thing, so she was going to bleed me dry with the small stuff. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. She was telling me that she was always watching, that she would find every tiny infraction, that she would make my life a living hell of fines and registered letters. She's declared war, I thought, tapping the letter against my chin. But she brought a rule book to a project management fight. Big mistake. Arguing was useless. Temporary solutions, like the lifeguards, were just that. Temporary. I needed something else. I needed a solution that was permanent, unassailable, and so utterly, infuriatingly by the book that it would make her head explode. I needed to go on the offensive, but I had to do it using her own sacred texts against her. I walked into my home office, the $25 violation notice in hand, and unceremoniously dumped the 247-page HOA Bible onto my desk. I cracked my knuckles. It was time to find a loophole. For the next 4 hours, my office was a war room. The HOA rulebook was my battlefield map. Highlighters in yellow, pink, and green were my platoon markers. Post-it notes were my intelligence reports. I didn't just read it, I cross-referenced it, I analyzed it, I looked for what wasn't there. My internal monologue was a running commentary over a montage of me flipping pages, muttering to myself, and drinking way too much coffee. Section 7. Fences. Maximum height 6 feet. Material must be wood or approved synthetic composite. No chain link, no barbed wire. Got it. Reasonable enough. Section 9. Auxiliary structures. Sheds must be under 100 square feet and painted to match the primary dwelling's approved color. Fine, I don't need a shed. Section 12. Landscaping. No tree of the genus Quercus, Salix, or Populus. No tree may exceed 30 feet in height without board approval. This is insane. This is written by people who hate joy. But somewhere in this mountain of suburban legalese, there has to be a gap, a blind spot, a Carroll-proof wormhole in the space-time continuum of rules. I was about to give up, my brain numb from page after page of regulations about satellite dish placement and acceptable lawn ornamentation. Gnomes were, in fact, strictly forbidden, when I found it. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was hidden in plain sight. It was under Section 11, Patios and Decks. The section contained exhaustive, mind-numbing rules about setbacks, railing heights, and approved stain colors. But in a subsection about unattached structures, I found the magic words. The bylaws strictly governed gazebos, pergolas, and children's play structures. They had defined these things with painstaking, legalistic precision. But there was absolutely no mention of towers, no mention of platforms, nothing about observation decks. The closest they came was a single, glorious sentence. No height restrictions apply to a freestanding, non-enclosed recreational platform located on the homeowner's private property lot. A slow, magnificent, evil grin spread across my face. My property line, I knew from my survey documents, abutted the HOA common area. My backyard fence was a mere 20 feet from the edge of the pool deck. I got out a piece of graphing paper and a fresh mechanical pencil. I wasn't just going to provide a life ring anymore. I was going to provide oversight. I picked up my phone. "Dave," I said when he answered. "Phase 2 is a go." "Oh, God, what now?" he groaned. "Are you installing a wave machine, a shark tank?" "Better," I said, looking at my nascent sketch. "I'm building a professional-grade, regulation-height lifeguard tower in my backyard, overlooking the community pool." There was a long, silent pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint sound of him processing the sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. "Jack," he finally said, his voice full of awe, "I think you might be my hero." "I'm calling it Project Malicious Compliance," I said. "And I need a recommendation for a contractor who isn't afraid of a little creative engineering." Dave gave me a name: Frank's Custom Decks and Structures. The reviews online said things like "no nonsense" and "old school quality." Perfect. "Frank's," a gruff voice answered on the first ring. "Hi, my name is Jack Morrison," I said. "I've got a project I'd like a quote on. It's a bit unusual." "I've built a 3-level deck on the side of a cliff, son. Try me," Frank grumbled. "I want you to build a standard regulation height lifeguard tower. Wood construction, professional grade. In my backyard." The line went silent. "A what now?" Frank asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "You running a summer camp or something?" "No," I said. deciding to just lay my cards on the table. Let's just say my HOA president has a personal vendetta against poolside safety, and I've decided to privatize the oversight from my property line. I heard a low chuckle on the other end. Wait a minute. Your HOA? Which one is it? You're not in Maple Creek, are you? That's the one, I confirmed. The chuckle turned into a full laugh. The one with the woman with the visor and the binder, little blonde helmet, Carol? You know her? I asked, my hopes soaring. Know her? Frank's voice was suddenly full of energy. She made me rip out a 400-square-foot deck I built for the Hendersons once because the stain was, and I quote, too cheerful. Said it violated the serene aesthetic of the neighborhood. I'll be at your place in an hour. No charge for the consultation. This ain't a job, son. This is a public service. I hung up the phone, feeling a surge of pure, unadulterated joy. I had the plan, I had the loophole. And now, by the grace of God and a too cheerful deck stain, I had the contractor. The game was well and truly on. Frank was everything I'd hoped for. He was a barrel-chested man in his 60s with a formidable mustache and hands like catcher's mitts. He arrived in a dusty Ford F-250 and surveyed my backyard with the critical eye of a battlefield general. I showed him my sketch and the open page of the HOA rulebook. He read the loophole sentence 3 times, a slow grin spreading across his face. Well, kid, you did your homework, he said, slapping the book shut. Freestanding, non-enclosed recreational platform. It's beautiful. It's poetry. They'll never see it coming. So you can do it? Do it? He scoffed. I'm gonna build you the Cadillac of Lifeguard towers. We'll use pressure-treated pine for the posts, galvanized steel bolts for every joint and non-slip tread on the stairs. We'll even put a little angled roof on it for sun protection, and a hook, a big one, for a life ring. An orange one, I specified. Frank's grin widened. The most obnoxiously, offensively orange one I can find. As we were staking out the location for the post holes, a flicker of movement caught my eye. It was Carol, standing at her own fence line a few houses down. She was watching us through a pair of binoculars. I gave her a cheerful little wave. She lowered the binoculars abruptly, her expression a perfect mask of pure, venomous confusion. She didn't know what we were building yet, but she knew it was aimed directly at her. The first delivery of lumber arrived the next day. The neighborhood started buzzing. The week of construction was a beautiful, escalating farce. Frank and his 2-man crew, a couple of stoic guys named Manny and Gus, worked with the quiet efficiency of artists. The tower began to rise from my lawn. A glorious wooden middle finger aimed squarely at Carol's obsession with beige conformity. The neighbors' reactions were split. A nervous-looking man from across the street came over to whisper that he thought I was brave but foolish. The dad who had witnessed the Lifeguard incident dropped off a 6-pack of craft beer for Frank's crew. The kids in the neighborhood started referring to my backyard as Fort Kickass. Carol, of course, did not take this lying down. Her counteroffensive was swift and multi-pronged. First, she called city code enforcement. A bored-looking inspector named Steve showed up, clipboard in hand. Frank calmly showed him the permit he'd pulled for a freestanding deck platform, the architectural drawings, and the copy of the HOA rules. Steve looked at the plans, looked at the half-built tower, and looked over the fence at the pool. So this is a recreational observation platform? Steve asked, a twinkle in his eye. For observing recreation, Frank confirmed solemnly. Steve took a long, slow look at Carol, who was watching from her yard like a hawk. He turned back to us, slapped a green approval sticker on the permit, and said, "Looks fine to me. Just make sure your setbacks are correct." As he walked away, I heard him mutter, "God, I love my job sometimes." Strike one for Carol. Next, the violation letters started arriving daily. Unauthorized construction noise outside of approved hours. Frank immediately produced a copy of the city ordinance, showing they started at 8:01 a.m. and finished at 4:59 p.m., well within the legal 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. window. Debris from construction visible from the street. Frank's crew was meticulously clean, running a magnetic sweeper for nails every evening and covering the lumber pile with a tarp. Each petty accusation was parried with cold, hard, documented facts. By Friday, the tower was complete. It was magnificent. 15 feet tall, solid as a rock, smelling of fresh-cut pine and righteous indignation. It was more than a structure. It was a monument. "You know," Frank said, wiping sweat from his brow as we admired his handiwork, "in 30 years of building things, this is the most satisfying job I've ever done. It's more than wood and nails, kid. It's a testament to sticking it to the man, or, the woman." "It's my Sistine Chapel, Frank," I said, clapping him on the back. That evening, I added the finishing touches. A comfortable, weatherproof captain's chair at the top. A high-powered set of binoculars on a tripod. A bright red megaphone. And as the pièce de résistance, I used a pulley system to hoist the brand-new, blindingly orange life preserver ring and hang it on the large, prominent hook Frank had installed on the side facing the pool. I knew it wouldn't be long. The next morning, signs appeared all over the neighborhood. "Emergency HOA board meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m., Community Green. Agenda, unauthorized structure, Lot 47. Lot 47. That was me. She had finally gone nuclear. The community green was a patch of grass right next to the pool. As dusk settled, the entire neighborhood seemed to be there. The atmosphere was thick with tension and humidity. And looming over the whole scene, casting a long shadow in the evening light, was my tower. Carol stood before the assembled residents, flanked by the 4 other, deeply uncomfortable-looking board members. She had a portable projector and a screen, and was in the middle of a PowerPoint presentation filled with grainy, long-lens photos of my tower from every conceivable angle. And this monstrosity," she said, her voice trembling with rage as she clicked to a slide with the words, "Flagrant violation," in a 72-point blood-red font. "It is a blatant and aggressive violation of our community standards. It is an eyesore, a public nuisance, and it is demonstrably lowering our property values." "I don't know, Carol," a voice called out from the crowd. It was the dad from the Lifeguard incident. "My kids think it's cool. We're thinking of putting a zip line on our roof that connects to it." Carol ignored him, her eyes burning holes into me. "I demand the board issue an immediate and binding order for its removal at the homeowner's expense." The head board member, a tired-looking accountant named Tom, cleared his throat and looked at me. "Mr. Morrison, do you have a response?" I stepped forward, holding my binder. "I do, Tom. Thank you, Carol, for that passionate, if factually incorrect presentation. If everyone could mentally turn to page 87 of their rule book, section 11, patios and decks. You will find exhaustive regulations for gazebos, pergolas, and children's playhouses." "What you will not find," I said, my voice ringing out with clarity, "are any rules whatsoever governing the construction, height, material, or color of a freestanding, non-enclosed recreational platform built on private property, which is exactly what my city-permitted and fully inspected structure is." I used a laser pointer to gesture to the green sticker, still visible on the tower's main post. "This tower is 100% compliant with both city code and our own governing documents." A murmur went through the crowd. "Furthermore," I continued, pressing my advantage, This whole situation arose because our HOA president unilaterally decided that a vital piece of life-saving equipment was an eyesore. I have simply provided a robust, permanent solution. From my platform, I have a clear, unobstructed view of the entire pool area. I have binoculars for enhanced monitoring. I held up the binoculars. I have a megaphone to warn residents of unsafe behavior. I held up the megaphone. And this was the moment. This was the grand finale I had planned with Frank. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small remote control. I have also provided a readily accessible, highly visible emergency flotation device. I pressed the button. With a soft click, a solar-powered LED spotlight that Frank had installed on the tower flickered to life, bathing the side of the tower in brilliant white light. And perfectly centered in that beam, glowing like a holy relic against the twilight sky, was the magnificent, blindingly orange life ring. I have, at my own considerable personal expense, made this pool area safer. I have done the very thing the HOA board is supposed to do. Any vote to have this structure removed is a vote against child safety. It is a vote in favor of beige-colored apathy. I lowered the remote. Your move. The crowd was dead silent for a heartbeat. Then someone started to clap. It was the dad. Then his wife joined in. Then the teenagers. Within seconds, a wave of applause was rippling through the assembled residents. The board members looked at each other. They looked at Carol's apoplectic face. They looked at my legally airtight, safety-first argument. They looked at the cheering crowd. Tom, the head board member, sighed the long, weary sigh of a man who just wanted to go home and watch TV. Based on a review of our bylaws and the compelling safety argument presented by Mr. Morrison, the structure is compliant. There is no action to be taken at this time. Meeting adjourned. He banged a non-existent gavel, and the board members scattered like startled birds. Carol just stood there, utterly, completely, and publicly defeated. Her ultimate weapons, the rules, the board, public shaming, had all been turned against her and had blown up in her face. She gave me a look of such pure, concentrated hatred that I thought my shirt might catch fire. Then, without another word, she turned and vanished into the darkness. A month later, I was sitting in my captain's chair atop the tower, sipping an iced tea. The tower was now just a part of the neighborhood, a weird, beloved part. I'd hired Kevin, the serious lifeguard, for a few hours every Saturday and Sunday for official pool safety observation duty. He was saving up for college, and he logged his hours with meticulous care in a little notebook. The tower had been featured in a local news blog under the headline, "Local Man Fights HOA with Lifeguard Tower Wins." Property values, contrary to Carol's dire predictions, had actually seen a slight bump. Apparently, a neighborhood with character and a strong sense of community safety was a good selling point. Down below, the original dingy life ring had been quietly returned to its hook by the HOA maintenance guy. But everyone knew which one was the real deal. Mine was the bat signal of poolside safety. Carol hadn't made eye contact with me in weeks. She still used the pool, but she stayed in the shallow end, away from my tower's benevolent gaze. I scanned the pool with my binoculars. Kids splashing, parents relaxing. All was safe, all was well. I spotted a "for sale" sign being hammered into the lawn of a house down the street. A new family would be moving in soon. I smiled to myself, raising my glass in a silent toast to the newcomers. Welcome to the neighborhood, I thought. The water's fine.